Welcome back. Now, unemployment is expected to have worsened, particularly in the second 3 months of the year. This is as economic activity was crippled by the lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. Economists forecast the rise in unemployment to have jumped from 30.1% to somewhere near 35%. Now, the second quarter was the height of the lockdown, preventing many businesses from operating. It is then expected that the jobs numbers will reflect the initial effects of the lockdown, that's the hard lockdown that is, and the steep contraction in GDP in the second 3 months of the year. Gross domestic product fell by 17.1% year on year in the second quarter. The inability to operate under lockdown restrictions has forced many businesses to shut down, which then forces many into the unemployment ranks.
Our expectations is that the unemployment rate has risen to about 34%. However, if we look at consensus expectations, they're about 35%. If we look in terms of the minimum expectations, about 31.2%, and with some expecting as high as a 50% unemployment rate. Our belief is that the number of jobs that have been lost in the second quarter are not indicative of how far the job losses have gone. We are likely to see more jobs being lost into the third quarter, and as a result, we don't think the numbers that will be published tomorrow will represent the maximum unemployment rate that we're going to see because of the crisis. Unemployment rate is likely to continue to rise in the quarters ahead.
Let's continue with our economic outlook then. It certainly is a data-rich week this week. The South African Reserve Bank is expected to come out with its quarterly bulletin as well tomorrow around 11 a.m., which looks at the state of the economy, giving us precise macroeconomic data, particularly then for the second quarter. And after the big four banks having released their financial results earlier, where they showed horrible numbers, they generally had to provide for massive impairments as a result of the COVID-19's impact. Capitec is finally releasing its interim results. We'll see just how the pandemic has affected their numbers too. And come the 1st of October, they'll be in a flurry of data on the manufacturing sector, as well as car sales, among others. Inflation numbers also expected out on Wednesday. We head on over to our next story now, where members of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, that's SAFTU, have descended then on the Nedlac offices out in Johannesburg. They are now demanding that indeed government and their employers must come up with a solution for the worsening levels of job losses and poverty in the country. Our reporter Mbongeni Muthwa has more.
A small but vocal SAFTU crowd descended on Nedlac offices here in Roseburg in Johannesburg. Here to present a long list of socio-economic demands that they want government and business to address.
Anybody who stays in our country will recognize that we are finding ourselves at the point of no return. We have arrived at the point of a precipice. We are risking a new civil war if we allow the situation to go any further west. The levels of poverty, the levels of unemployment inequalities, the fact that our schools are dysfunctional, our healthcare centers, our criminal justice system have all but fallen apart, the levels of our environmental degradation, the water crisis, the eviction crisis of farm workers, the evictions of the backyarders everywhere, the state of the service delivery by our local governments. Tell me one aspect where we're doing things right.
And in an unprecedented move, SAFTU says it will join Cosatu's national strike against corruption and job losses next week.
We've been in discussions with the leadership of Cosatu, and we are all agreed that the demands they are pursuing, 4 of them, are also our demands. They are amongst the list of issues that we are submitting here. The issue of job, bloodbath, and the need for job creation.
Regarding SAFTU's demand to be represented at Nedlac, Nedlac says it's working on something to together with SAFTU, and it's not against admitting SAFTU once it meets its admission criteria. For SABC News, I'm Mbongeni Muthwa in Rosebank in Johannesburg.